Welcome everyone to International Coaching Week. Yay, finally, once a year we're in International Coaching Week. And as you know, this year Coacharya has a special range of webinars for you. Our numbers are still growing, so I think it's about 8 in total right now. Am I right, Smita? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are pleased that you are here with us. And just to do a reminder, our theme for this year is creating space, S space, P space, A space, C space, and E. So creating space for what really matters. And we all know currently the world moves by very quickly and often rewards urgency over reflection, creating space that becomes quick to act. What we would love for the series of webinars is the space to think, the space to feel, to listen, and to challenge assumptions, and the space to reconnect with what is meaningful, essential, and transformative. Our first webinar, today's, is all about shaping organizational culture through coaching conversations. And it invites us right into that inquiry of what really matters. So I'll say a little bit about organizational culture and frame today's webinar. I'm going to hand over Smita, who's also going to do a welcome, and she will introduce our guest speaker. And I'll hand over Kapil, our guest, who will also welcome you. So just to say a bit about organizational culture in the spirit of today's webinar. So this organizational culture we're talking about, we want to give focus to for the next hour, is not one that's just built through policies, strategies, structure, and planning. It is built in that everyday moments of interactions, in the conversations that leaders hold, the questions they ask, the safety they create, and the possibilities they open up. Through coaching conversations, leaders can shift mindsets, deepen relationships, and influence the systems that shape organizational life. And we look forward to sharing the space with you in how we integrate and impact all about organizational culture, and our coaching can shape it differently. I'll now hand over to Smita, who's going to welcome you and do a speaker introduction. Thanks, Smita.
Thank you, Cindy. So welcome all, welcome Kapil for this conversation with Cindy and me today on the screen. But you see participants joining in, so it's like you're also conversing with all participants here joining us today. So, like Cindy mentioned, the theme for our ICW week is creating space for what truly matters in uncertain times. And the uncertain times, I would really like to call it as an evolving landscape for us. I think that's, to me, sounds something which keeps us moving in the positive direction of making things work, right? So culture, we know, is the only thing about culture that comes to my mind is the common phrase that we keep hearing: culture eats strategy for breakfast. But today you're going to listen to Kapil and his stories, and we'll also add in our experiences to see what is beyond that common phrase that we keep hearing about culture. With that, I would like to introduce Kapil. Kapil is the business head, Textiles, Aditya Birla Group, and he's based in Mumbai. And we'll Kapil, I would like you to share a little bit more about yourself, and also something as an introduction for this topic of organization culture. You are you started your journey as a coach. So from that lens, what is looking really different for us? We'll start there.
So I think good evening, everybody, and Smita and Cindy, thanks for hosting me. It's a great pleasure to be a part of such an elite community who helped me in some way during my journey of career in terms of coaching me. So I was lucky to have coaches on most of my career where they helped me to grow. So thank you once again. I think I'm a part of Aditya Birla Group. I'm with the group for last almost 32 years. I have worked in various business and various functions in the group, and I've joined them as a management trainee. And something, a culture in the group which we drive collectively, all of us, and how we value culture in our group is something which made me very intrigued and looked at it. Ki, what can I do for my particular business, and how can I carve out something which basically joins the organization together, actually. So I think that's a brief introduction about me, and I think very interesting in terms of taking the journey of coach. I think in some way, as a leader, in some way, you end up coaching in different shape and different form and different platform. But coaching gives you a very sort of a structured approach in terms of driving things. And I believe culture is one thing which can be influenced through coaching. And I was reading few days back somewhere about even if you have a very high effective and high performance team, unless you create a community of that team and you bring that team together, I think you cannot achieve the larger objective of the organization. And this bringing of the team together and this bringing the high performance team who have their own targets, who have their own challenges, a coach through coaching is a fantastic tool where you can try to tie up all the top form of performance in an organization. And why I say that, because I believe coaching is a sense of unwritten belonging and rules, actually. So when you walk into an organization, I don't see any, I mean, you see values written there, you see vision, you see purpose, you see mission. I have not entered into any organization which has written what is their culture, actually. And to me, a culture is an unwritten belief which makes me come to my organization, makes every colleague in my organization come together. So when I wake up in the morning and when I'm looking to walk to my office, I know what I'm going to expect. I know, am I going to expect respect? Am I going to be allowed to take risks? What is the way we are going to behave? So I think that's where my definition of culture is. And I think through coaching, you could educate people, you could try to bind them together and create a community where everybody has this sense of belonging. So that's my bit piece, Mata, in terms of introducing and my passion about culture.
I love it, Kapil, because you're so beautifully put together that culture is all about the way people think, behave, relate, and work together. It's this, what shows up that is sometimes more invisible than what's on the company, the reception when you walk in. Um, and you beautifully, highlighted what is this culture all about. So let me ask our participants also the same question. Coaches, for you, what is organizational culture all about? You know, in what you are noticing in the organizations that you work with or work at, what is it what is it all about for you? What's this day-to-day reality that Kapil spoke about? How people greet him and interact with him? What is that like for you? We'd love your thoughts on the chat box as we continue, please. And we will, from time to time, invite your feedback or for you to share the talking points that we are raising. Just again to remind the coaches on the call, if your name is showing up differently, please would you correct it to your right name. So Smita, let me check with you, So this organizational culture is what we're seeing, what we consistently feel and live. It's just a day-to-day reality of what's going on, far more than organizational structure. And you used a lovely term there. I mean, that most common saying, which you really have to think about sometimes. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And you and I speak sometimes, and I say, this is a real case of that. So, what is it for you? What is this day-to-day culture or organizational culture?
Yeah. So, organization culture, Cindy, I was just thinking on this as it's really like a collective outcome, right? And this collective outcome is exactly to what Kapil said. It's not you, it's unwritten, right? So how do we really show it? How does culture gets demonstrated for any organization? It is through the individual's mindset. It is through the individual's behavior in the way that they communicate with each other. All of that collectively, somebody can, walk into an office and say that, wow, like, you would, from the very top leader to somebody who's maybe just greeting you near the door, you would kind of get to feel that, they are almost sounding so same. Very recently, me and Pranav, we had actually gone to an organization and we could just feel that, they all speak the same language. That was telling us about that, there is this culture in this organization which is built on a daily basis. There are no policies written. There is no frameworks that one can follow, but only through these behaviors which they can, we can come to know of it. And also, I feel over a period of time, what gets tolerated is what gets repeated. So, what are we really tolerating in our ecosystem? Because that is what gets cemented as a culture.
It's very interesting, right? What gets tolerated gets repeated. So, which tells me there's a lot of invisible cultures happening or what's below the surface. There are some visible cultures we see and we hear and we know, but there's some things invisible here. Kapil, I'd love to engage with you on that, and also participants, if you would write your points. What lies below the surface? What shows up as invisible culture that's not spoken about?
There are
Kapil?
many comments coming up here in the chat box, Cindy. Very interesting comments.
Okay, we take it in a minute. Kapil,
Yes.
invisible culture for you, and then we'll dive into the chat box.
So I think invisible culture is something which we practice or we follow. So let me give you an example. We enter into a meeting and you send an agenda and you want everyone to be prepared and come to the meeting. Another leader, I walk into the meeting and I just give my thoughts and don't listen to anybody. So there is a culture where people start feeling ki whatever we do, eventually the leader, the boss is going to take a decision. And slowly they start excluding themselves from participating in the meeting and participating, not attending, but really contributing in a meeting. So that's one culture you can see in many organizations. But there is a culture where you enter into a meeting, you allow 15 minutes for people to express themselves, to share their things beyond work, and you give a space to everybody to express their ideas and take a collective decision. Now, that's a culture of inclusiveness where you create a psychological safety for people to come and speak their thoughts. So I think you see this invisible practices in every organization. Just to give another example about safety. Now we talk about safety as being important part, but let's say as a leader, I want to an organization, I go to a factory, and I don't use the PPE, the protective equipment, and just walk without wearing it and say it's not important. Now that's also a culture I'm trying to create where people say, okay, safety we only talk, but we don't follow. So I think there are a lot of these things which when you go to our organization, you see people behaving, you see people practicing, and to me those are some of the invisible uh, practices or behaviors which you can see, which largely defines the culture of an organization.
Cindy, I just have a response here, based on what Kapil was sharing, and I'm just reminded of another organization. This is such a great way to have every voice in the room, uh, for us to hear those voices, right? It's so important to give that space. And this is exactly of, another, I'm Kapil, I'm just, thinking of and just elaborating on the point that you made. So this organization also does the same thing. However, we are also team coaching there. And what exactly the participants were saying is, while on the face, there is this space provided 15 minutes for them, but you know what? The decisions are already made before we are called even to the room.
Yes.
And it
Yeah,
was such a surprise to me, saying that, to have a face and to show it to the world, you want to keep and showcase that, that is the culture you're into. But the fact of the matter is something else. Any thoughts there on that point?
I think you are absolutely right. And people are smart, they sense it, and slowly you see that becoming a practice in any organization actually. And even if I try to cover it and give that 15 minutes, it shows in my body language, it shows how restless I am. And slowly people start, as I said, they attend the meeting, but their involvement or participation slowly goes down actually. And that to me is a big loss to the organization in some way. And then slowly you start giving messages ki here, whatever you try to do, the decision will be taken by the boss, whatever they behave. So I think it's a very valid thing what you said. And I think these are the small things which actually creates a culture and people over a period start observing and capturing that. And that defines an organization in terms of what culture are they following.
yeah, absolutely. I love that point of decision making, Kapil, because so often we want people in the organization, whether it's self or teams, to make decisions, and yet we somehow lead the decision, and then we say they're not capable of making good decisions. It's just such a cycle of, where we don't allow people to come forth, speak their thoughts, and make the right decision because somewhere in the background, somebody is doing influencing and leading.
Yeah.
Let's, should we take some questions and suggestions?
Yeah, I think more than questions, Cindy, everybody's really reflecting and sharing wonderful points here. Um, there is a point by Dr. Shivali which says invisible culture in organization is like those unspoken beliefs, values, behaviors, and norms that silently influence and impact how people think, interact, and work. I think very powerful point. Maybe Kapil, if you have anything to share there.
No, I think I completely agree what the participant has said actually. And as I said in my earlier thing, slowly these start becoming the way of working in an organization. Though you don't write anywhere on a wall, you don't write display. But just imagine when you do certain things every day, how people pick those practices and that's the way it becomes. And it could be positive and negative, both actually depending upon what you're promoting. So really, these are all under the whatever you want to call hidden, not visible. But in some way, we come to an. I mean, if I come to an office and if I have to, I greet everybody. That's something which is not written anywhere. I have to greet. But then you start people greeting and interacting with each other, and now you create a different atmosphere in the organization rather than me just walking and going into straight to my room, not talking to anybody. So I think absolutely correctly what has been said. And over a period, you see that becoming a part of the organization. Now, as I said, it can join the organization or it can fragment the organization and each one start working in silos, each one focus on his area. So, yeah, it has a larger impact how the culture is being practiced in any organization.
And that's a larger thing that companies are working towards, or organizations are working towards collaboration, inclusion, togetherness. And then they get so surprised. Why are people behaving in silos? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it comes as a surprise. I want collaboration, and people are still working in silos. So, what are your thoughts on that, Kapil?
So I think we and we as individuals and especially a team of people who are, let's say, very ambitious, very powerful, they're competitive and smart. So they create a different kind of silo or tension in an organization. And that tension is basically to achieve and to deliver better than the others now. Now, as a coach, if I can work around that tension in terms of diffusing that tension and bringing them all together to a common objective, I can create a very powerful team which works seamlessly, which is ready to help each other. So I think it's important how do you gauge that tension and how do you basically convert that tension into a very productive way of working actually. And this happens in a in very smart people where everybody is smart, everybody is ambitious, everybody can just lead a company. So there are different kind of tensions you see. So I think
Yeah.
coaching plays a very important role in diffusing that tension and creating a community, which I said at the beginning of the session, and then it brings everybody together for a common direction or a common objective of the organization.
Yeah, it's almost like some fears and beliefs lying below the surface that needs to be encouraged to be spoken about. Smita, anything you want to add on that? Go ahead.
Cindy, I was, parallelly also reading on some of the chat notes here, and Sudha says the formal meeting ends and the real meeting starts by the coffee machine over lunch, and this is so true. And I wonder what happens really about the trust quotient and the psychological safety quotient there when it is a situation like this. What happens to the culture?
Absolutely. Yeah, like in the corridors. The real conversations are in the corridors away from the meeting rooms. Yeah. We've
Yeah,
heard that before so many times. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So just to bring in the coaching element, because that's what we're also focusing on today. So, Kapil, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know this is a very broad question, answer it from wherever you want to, right? What are you noticing about coaching? Firstly, let's go to psychological safety. What are you noticing when we introduce psychological safety? What change do we begin to see happen?
So I think psychological safety is a very important and a very big topic actually. Uh,
Yeah.
so everybody of us feels we create psychological safety in our organization. I allow my team to speak. I allow my team to come in a meeting and talk. And I think, but my experience with psychological safety, it starts with me actually. So am I allowing my team to and it's very small thing when I enter into a meeting, am I allowing my team to speak? That it doesn't end there. But am I giving my team the proper listening and proper acknowledging what they are doing? And am I able to
Mm.
create that environment where people don't feel scared to speak, to express the ideas? Many a times, as leaders, and because of our past success, we believe there is certain ways of achieving or delivering the objectives of an organization. So sometimes when people come with a different idea, you are always scared and you don't want to take that challenge and that risk. And I think that's where the whole psychological safety of encouraging people to speak to come. Because when I believe somebody is challenging me, my belief, I suddenly try to stop him, and that creates a negative impact in terms of people not being willing to speak or not willing to come open actually. So hence, it's very important to create a system where people come and express. You may not encourage, you may not like their ideas, but again, there are ways of completely not discarding them, not completely saying no to them actually. And psychological safety is a very powerful tool in my view. If you are able to create an ecosystem of psychological safety, it leads to innovation, it leads to experimentation, it leads to trying new things, which I think in today's world where the entire conversation started in terms of how the world has changed and how things move so fast, I think it's a fantastic way of creating an organization where people are willing to try new things, people are willing to look at new things, people are willing to express new things. And I think that's the power of psychological safety if one is able to create in an organization. And that is quite big actually with many leaders because who have seen success in a certain way of. So I think to me, it's a very powerful culture one could bring in an organization.
Yeah. That's quite insightful. And Kapil, while you were talking, I was thinking about something, that just showed up. So I'm going to ask you about it because this shows up repeatedly from others also. What about this culture of scolding or aggressive, too much of aggression. I may not be using the right words, so coaches on the chat, feel free to do so. But the scolding, I'll just use the simple language of scolding. What about that? Like, people use it as a reward system or feel like if you shouted at somebody or scolded them or spoke harshly to them, they were going to get the job done.
So
Is that true? What do you think? Yeah.
it's a style of working. And I was reading a book actually, The Hard Things About the Hard Things. And
Yeah.
it talks about the startup companies. And I was really surprised to read that. And somewhere the book says in some startup, the culture could be very sort of aggressive. It could be a culture of pressure, using languages which are not acceptable in any. So to me, it basically again goes back to my belief system, wherein if I was aggressive, I was scolding and I was shouting and able to deliver and see success. And that's what I feel is the only way to achieve success. And that slowly becomes part of my working and to some extent the kind of culture I create. So I believe I can pick and shout at somebody and scare him. He will. But I think, and that's what you see many leaders and you read about some successful leaders who are very aggressive. But I think to me, there is no right or wrong in terms of the way you can work. I don't think scolding or screaming is the right way, actually. I think the more important is how you could sort of include your team members and create a culture of inclusion
Absolutely.
rather than simply scolding and shutting them down. I think, and that's where I think the coaching plays a very important role. How do you sort of challenge an individual in terms of thinking and reflecting back? So let's say my subordinate is not able to deliver what I expect. Now, am I going to scream at him and do it, or am I going to take the work and do myself? Or should I take a mode of coaching and maybe pose questions to him, which forces him to go and reflect and come back with a solution? So I think scolding, in my opinion, is not the solution. I think it's how you basically create an individual think on his own is very important. But as I said, there is nothing right or wrong. Some people feel scolding is great and they are successful. Some people feel it is not good. But from my opinion, it's more important is how do you include people in the work you do,
Into it.
and how you make things more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll just say that. We're not holding any biases about any particular leadership style. We only opening reflective points today about what we can do that's different. Yeah?
Yeah.
Smita, you want to add anything to the point that Kapil is making, how we could reflect and see what's going on inside us and the space we can open to others. And he said coaching can help with that. So you want to talk about this unconscious biases or patterning that show up?
Yeah. Cindy, again, just aligning to the theme of for us in this International Coaching Week, which is about creating space. So that space is really about for us to think and to reflect, to say that, with ever-changing times, with new technologies, with AI, with multi-generational workforces, what is the new leader? How is the new leader need to show up? And maybe, like what Kapil said in his example, I have seen success by being in a particular way. But now that the external environment is changing for me, what is that needs to change within me? And he beautifully also said that it just starts with us as leaders, and that reflection to say that if that is not working, what is the change that I would like to make in my leadership? And
Yeah.
coaching plays such a important pertinent role in the way that we hold those conversations. You both spoke about scolding, which is of course like a very strong and a powerful word, and in the space of in the environment that we are right now, like the Gen Zs would just say, okay, see you in another organization, or I don't want to see you. I'll just leave you and go to another organization. But then I'm just mellowing the word scolding to a little softer word, which is about feedback. And I feel that in order for us to have a culture where feedback is really given in such a way where, the other person is taking it not from the space of um, getting offensive about it, but really from the space of saying that it is for the betterment. And also, I really love Kim Scott's framework, which talks about radical candor, right? So, caring personally and challenging directly. Can I create an environment, a psychologically safe environment? Can the culture be created in such a way where I can challenge and the other person does not feel offended, but feels that that's a personal care because I care for the growth of that other person, and that would also show up in the growth of the organization.
Yeah.
And I think coaching has
Absolutely.
that power to absolutely, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
Yeah.
Just finish the sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that is what I would say, that in order for us to create that environment for personal care and challenge directly, can we use the language of coaching? Can we wear the hat of that coach?
Yeah.
I think coaching is one of the best way to mold effective team into powerful teams actually, and it helps in binding the people together. And I think that's the power of coaching. At least I'm experiencing when we talk to people actually.
Yeah. And it allows a space for encouraging, supportive, noticing, observing, like really paying attention to the other side. Just because I'm South African, coming from our background where we had to make culture changes in quite a radical way, like thrown into it. One day it's one culture and then it's another one. And the conscious effort that everybody made was really noticeable, where you would stop, take a pause, think about what you're saying before you begin to say it. We didn't always get it right, but at least next time we knew how to do it differently and make that conscious effort. So there's a point that's showing up in what you're saying and what Smita says, that all this conscious effort requires the discipline to keep repeating it until you begin to see the change. What's
Yes.
your thoughts on that?
So you're absolutely right. I think um, you said constantly displaying it, but I'll say as leader, it should be walk the talk actually. So I may come to a office or I may be in this webinar and saying, yeah, I'm creating a culture of psychological safety. But the moment the webinar gets over, I go back and go to my old style and start telling people, okay, you come for meeting, but I'm going to take a decision. So I think people observe that. So it's very
Yeah,
important for us as leaders how we try to create what we speak, we try to practice. And I think that's what helps in terms of reinforcing or the whole belief system or whole culture or organization we are going to create actually. So I think what you said repeated is important, and sometimes to make things happen you have to repeat, you have to show again and again, and I think it takes time because culture is something which is very strong, or the way we behave is very strong beliefs. It's something which we got rewarded in the past, so it's very difficult for me to leave something which is rewarded to me actually. So
yeah,
coaching is one of the ways where you try to challenge people to rethink. And I think at least I am very new to coaching, and when I meet my coaches, one common problem which I see everybody is to let go things and sort of not to hold everything together, I think. And that's where you try to make people let go their beliefs which has made them successful in the past and start thinking to the new ways of working. So I think one is definitely, as a leader, you have to do walk the talk actually has become very important.
Kapil, you said something so interesting that coaches know, in doing this transition from what was and always worked and now trying some different things in alignment with new cultures and strategies. This whole piece about staying attached and detached from the old to allow something new to emerge. It's a coaching competency. I forgot which one, but I'm sure our coaches on the call would remind us about how to remain detached in order to allow the new to emerge. Yeah. Coaches on the call, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts on how we could let go of something that was already embodied in us, a part of our old culture, and now be in the space of doing something different? I mean, the use of AI is teaching us all that, right? How to navigate something totally new in the moment and different. Smita?
Yeah. Yes, some very, very interesting points there on the chat. Um,
Should we take a
just read.
pause and
Yeah,
take any
just
questions?
reading one thing here, Cindy, and I wanted to add to what Kapil said. So Anuj says holding starts from an egoic idea of superiority, a dominating way of leading. Right. So, and then there is one more point which Sudha says, and I so truly resonate with this, which is about like how children respond to parents' action and learn from parents' action. So it's about for the leaders, I think enough. We've been just talking about culture for decades. It's really about for us to say that, how do we walk the talk and model, and also this is not something which is static. It's not like once the culture is formed forever, but it is dynamic. And are we listening to the dynamic needs of the system and accordingly working on what cultural transformation we would like to see in the system? The other aspect which keeps coming is about, where should it start? Where is the start point of any transformation? Is it, is it just top driven? And if it is top driven, then what can we do as leaders to really take it to the bottom level in the system? How does it trickle down? What efforts can we make as leaders? I'm asking multiple questions for us to reflect, saying, where is the start of any transformation?
Yeah, because that's spot on, right? Because you can't just go to the top from the top and shout out, today we are making a change. This is what it looks like. I'll tell you what to do and you do it.
So I think if you allow me,
Go ahead.
share some of our experiences. I think we started this journey. I mean, we are in midst of cultural transformation, working in our organization. So we started this journey about almost 18 months back, and the whole idea was how do you bring the top team together and make it more effective, actually. And I think that was genesis of how these things work out. And slowly we transited to a culture transformation and how do we create a culture. And I think the big thing came up. The business was an inflection point, whether either you are willing to adopt new ways of working and you, as Cindy said, leave your baggage or whatever you have done in the past, or you allow you to slide down, actually. So we made a choice. Let's look at how do we make the business grow, and we were at an inflection point. So with this journey started 18 months, and then we hooked on to the cultural transformation. To some extent, I think there is a way the top team comes together and thinks like what kind of culture do you want to create. And of course, we went back to the teams, did a survey, understood from them what they want, heard their voices, and then we started creating our cultural pillars for the business. And our cultural pillars are innovation, collaboration, customer centricity, backed by psychological safety to support each one of them. And you are right, Cindy, not the top team can go, but you need to create champions. And in some way, definition are coaches who basically takes the whole philosophy, the whole cultural initiatives down the line. So we had 44 cultural champions who were trained in Mumbai, and they spent 2.5 days each of them with us and with some, and they were basically educated in terms of, and they were in some way made not the certified coach, a mini coach, I could say. If this is your coaching and this is the material you need to look and take it to the teams down the line. And we have a plan device for them for the next 30 days. How are they going to do? What are they going to make? And there will be the voices of people at the shop floor, at the ground level, to bring it to us, and hence we start moving the journey. So I think it some way starts with the top, because we all are so busy in our day-to-day working, and we sort of embarrass the culture which is there. But when you start looking at the way we were, and then the top team starts coming together, and then the question is, how do you involve? So we started from top, but we went to people, we did a survey, we took their voice, and now we have 44 cultural champions who are working across, and they are our coaches for culture, actually.
Yeah. And just to further acknowledge that, Kapil, you've been doing this coaching culture at ABG for almost 6 years now, formally, as in cohorts. And of course, it may have been informal for years before that. So I want to acknowledge a conscious effort of using coaching conversations in order to make the change you're looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think coaching plays a very important role, and I think what I at least learned is, how do you make the person think? Because you can instruct him and tell him what to do, but at the end of the day, if he doesn't reflect and understand where he can work and what is his area to improve, I think that improvement could be only in that session, and then he goes back and starts the way he's working always. But when you make him think, when you push beyond, and when you make him reflect, I think that's the real change one actually takes on.
Yeah. Yeah. So that reflection part again shows up as such a critical point in what was and the emerging future.
Yes, it's the disconnect which I mean, you reflect and you try to, as Smita was saying, if there is changes happening, and how do you adopt learning, and how do you adapt new things? And I think that's where I believe, as coaches, we play an important role in terms of helping people to move from what they were and how they want to change and adopt new things, actually, and
Yes.
support them in that journey.
Go on,
The
Smita.
huge acknowledgement, Cindy, right? This is such amazing strategic move, I would say, right? Like it is really about not just the leadership becoming aware, but also very in a somebody said actually culture change or psychological safety in a very facilitated way. So it is about for you to identify people, train them, and to be culture champions, which is not like one of a day or one of a like an event, but it is over a period of time that you are gathering information through them so that you are better aware of what's exactly happening in the system, and what do we change there to so that the culture is transformed. So brilliant.
Yeah. And I think I stand corrected, maybe more than 8 to 10 years that coaching was implemented formally, not 6. I think it's a bit more than that.
I am not a coach for so long, but I had an opportunity of being a coachee for many years, and I think
Yeah.
period I was really helped by coaches who sort of made me reflect and look at how could I move to the next level. Or so we have in our group where we sort of provide coaches for people when they shift their roles, when they shift their jobs, and support an individual in terms of uh, uh, adopting to the new role or new environment, what new challenges they face. So I think that's the culture we have been having for many years in our group.
So what's the value for you, Kapil? The value of coaching, or even when you were coached and now that you are coaching, what's the value for you?
So I think there are two, three things now. Of course, in terms of there is somebody whom you can go and speak. There's somebody who you trust, and many of times you can open with him, and you believe the guy is not going to sort of break the trust, and that's the ethics of the coaching. So I think you share your challenges with the coach, and of course the coach tries to push you in terms of thinking, and really he makes you find solution, and I think that's the best way you can learn and sort of shift your ideas and shift your and thoughts and beliefs, actually. So I am so that's and currently I'm coaching a senior person from one of the international companies. He's of course a good friend of mine, so we had 3 sessions, and he says, you made me think. I mean, these things were I was observing, but I never paid attention to it. But when now I'm interacting with you, you made me think, and you made me go back to the drawing board and review what I'm doing, what I'm not doing. So I think in some way, I mean, my coaches made me think, and there were difficult times. Once goes so how they support you in that time. And I was lucky to have a coach in Harvard, and the way he interacted with us and the way he observed us was just phenomenal. So I think somewhere they push you back, somewhere they make you reflect, somewhere they make you think and challenge your thinking, because as I said, we all come with a certain background of success stories, and we try to carry that. So I think that's a role at least the coaches helped me in my journey.
Yeah, I love that point that you're making, because it's like the values become visible in actions. It's not just, on the wall. It's more now um, in the actions, in everyday patterns and behaviors and conversations. It's like an ideal situation or the desired outcome that we want to happen. Smita, anything you want
Yeah.
to add around that?
Yes. So, I'm just reading again here in the chat, and the word courage, and I feel that it is so important to be call a spade a spade. Like, how can we create a culture where things are, just welcome, and we it's not, silence is not something which is awarded, because that is what, again, what will be rewarded. Earlier, a couple was talking about what is getting awarded, and we know neuroscience says what gets awarded is going to get repeated. So can the culture of coaching, courage, again, be given such a safe space for one to be courageous, to just call out whatever it is in meetings, and uh, verbal or non-verbal, we don't cut out on any of those. I know you and Kapil moved ahead to be saying that how do we use coaching and coaching mindset to be nurturing that environment? And I'm just going a step back again to be saying, what can be that barrier to
Mm.
not create an environment of trust and safety, and courage to me in leaders is so profound. And how do I create a culture where people are courageous?
Absolutely.
So I
So
think, yeah,
go ahead, Kapil. No,
Go
you
ahead.
go ahead.
it's a very interesting question or point you're making, Smita. So as a leader, I think it starts from me actually. So am I open to listen that somebody says a spade actually for me also? So I may say for my subordinates or my teammates, but is the reverse acceptable to me? And that the day that reverse, whatever you call it, acceptable, and you practice that, you will create an environment where people will feel encouraged and they will have courage to come and speak. But I think many a times, many leaders are very reluctant to. I mean, if somebody comes and says, they're reluctant to accept that, and you may not
Yeah.
scream at and you may not scold, as Cindy was saying, but even if your body language is something of non-acceptance, I think the message is
Yeah.
very powerful, and then the whole challenge of creating a culture of courage doesn't work actually.
Yeah, the scarf model, the away and the towards reaction, right? You don't even have to use verbal language. Sometimes your entire rapport would dictate whether it's an away reaction or a towards reaction. So just to also say this, I know Smita spoke about a model, and so am I now. Coaches, there are many models. Just put in culture transformation and you will see how much, which is why we just wanted to keep a neutral coaching language today and not bring in many. However, I must share a lovely metaphor I saw today no, a few days ago with you, and I put it into the chat box. Um, you know, culture, this is on culture as the soil. Culture is the soil of the organization. Strategy, talent, and performance may be the visible growth, but culture determines what takes root, what flourishes, and what struggles to survive. It's quite nice to see how culture impacts, or it's quite interesting and highlighting and insightful to see how culture impacts whatever strategy, values of the organization. We've been talking for almost 22 minutes or so. And just to kind of do a recap of some of the points we've raised before we move into any kind of rounding up. So we spoke about what lies, a bit about what is culture and what we are talking about today, and what lies in below the surface, what's invisible, and what visible, what shows up. We've also spoke about patterns and values and beliefs and the fears that lie unspoken within the strategy or the values the company wants, and what is in the meeting room and what lies in the during coffee breaks and in the corridors. So I want to, of course, we've also spoken about the discipline that is required for culture change, and of course the safety, the trust and safety for people to show up differently. As we move towards rounding up, may I check with you, share your thoughts. What do you think we could do differently? Or what are some things in small ways we can change to embody and embed and encourage culture change?
Smita, you go ahead, please.
Sorry, Kapil, you wanted me to go ahead first?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So, two most important, everything that we spoke, I think, is really like, a reminder. But two things stand out for me very strongly and boldly. One is about culture transformation cannot be delegated downwards. It must be really embodied at the top. And the second is about what gets tolerated gets repeated. And it's really about for the leadership to see and listen and keep checking on for what is really getting tolerated. That is what is going to become your culture. So
I think from my point, culture is a journey. I think we need to have patience. It cannot change overnight. And I think that's where, as leaders, we need to have that patience and keep on driving it actually. And I think, yeah, that's from my side.
Cindy, what do you think? Thank you, Kapil. That's the word journey really is a very important point there, right? It's not static.
Yeah, because as we were talking, I was thinking the same. It's never easy, right? Leaders are holding a dual role. They're holding an organizational outcomes, objectives, strategy that they need to align with. So it's never easy to be the in-between person wanting to align to what's above and wanting then to also interact, collaborate, and do something different with the people, with your teams or individuals. So that in-between space, we must acknowledge it's never an easy one. And whoever is sitting there, whatever role you are playing, of course, transformation, we can acknowledge that you are doing your best to make this work in very small ways. What we're encouraging today is how to use a coaching conversation that's more structured approach to help create that change. Yeah? It's just one tool. As you spoke about transformation champions, and you also said mini coaches. So,
Yes.
So even that approach is using coaching, which for all of us are becoming like everyday conversations. I mean, any coach would say that. Once you're in a coaching journey, it becomes a part of your everyday language. So, coaches, any parting thoughts you want to leave with as we close today's webinar?
Cindy, there is a question here. If we can take that. how do you coach to foster the organization cultural change so it actually will materialize for the client?
Kapil, do you want to answer that, or
I
then I'll
think,
dive in after you?
Cindy,
You go.
you
Oh,
should
you
go
want
ahead
me
and
to?
answer because
Okay. So I think, we were talking earlier on about the repeatedness of it, the discipline to keep trying. Just because, the first few attempts didn't work, don't back off. One of the things that coaching talks about is facilitating client growth and learning. So whatever small the learning might be, go with that flow and just then begin to, you know, do progress, accountability, support in a larger way. It's the action, the conversion of the value or the intention to actions that will really begin to matter. And coaches know this is a repeated process. It's not once off. Kabir?
no, I agree with you. So, yeah.
Kapil, it's been wonderful having you. 1 hour is too short. I could pick your brains about 1,000 things and get some beautiful answers out of you.
So thank you for making me a part. I mean, it was a very exciting experience for me. I'm somebody who's very passionate about culture, so always ready to talk and work with people. Absolutely.
And to all our coaches and participants, thank you. You've made this a pleasure today. I love your sharing.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thank you, Kapil, for joining in. It was so good to
Thank
have
you.
this conversation with you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. See you.